the Martial Arts Movie Podcast.
I threw that shit before I walked in the room.
Featuring drunken Thai boxer, Will.
Too bad you will die.
The also drunken wrestler, Mark.
I said I don't want trouble.
And drunken karate master, Zero.
You've lost your balls.
And now,
I know Kung Fu. You know, baby.
Fists of Fail. You gonna be awake for this?
Yeah, I'm awake now. This fucking movie.
What, you didn't like it?
Oh, Mark's back. Oh, surprise.
I thought
listeners.
This guy's the famous, you didn't like the plot?
Okay, well, I feel like just from that first 5-second disgruntled sound, you can tell that Zero wasn't a fan of this movie.
Right?
And Mark finally is returned so we can talk about
a movie that everybody else hates.
The Shaw Brothers classic, Legendary Weapons of Kung Fu, aka Legendary Weapons of China, which is one of the album titles for the Wu-Tang Clan. I don't know much about their music. All I know is that this movie is supposed to be so good that it needs to be an album title. Unfortunately, I feel like Zero, that was definitely lost on you, right?
A little bit. So this is another recommendation that came from Reddit, and the request was, hey, could somebody suggest some Shaw Brothers films that have good fight scenes? And I'll say I got what I requested because, I would say I like the fights in this movie. But oh boy, sitting through this story was not easy, especially with this horrendous English dub.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Mark, you are back. What are your thoughts?
Well,
you haven't done this in a while.
I think our thoughts will differ slightly just because right off the bat I did watch it in Chinese and I did not have a dub, so that was fun. But I think I have to agree with the whole it's boring as hell in the beginning and it's actually really confusing since all of the characters are in and out so quickly. It's hard to get a grasp on what's going on, at least in the beginning. At least that's what I thought. And then eventually we get to some fighting. But you're going to hate me. And I kind of enjoyed the hidden messages in the plot in between the lines, kind of.
Well, we get to a lot of fighting. Once we hit the hour mark, it's basically every scene has a fight scene in it,
nonstop.
And it's like the last 40 minutes of the movie has just fights all back-ended. It's crazy how much fighting there is at the end.
Well, I mean, we have some fights earlier in the film, right? But definitely was.
Well, what I was saying is like everything earlier in the movie is fine, but I was just so lost with this plot. And then once all the fighting started happening, I was like, okay, at least there's fighting. At least I'm getting kind of interested in it. But I just hated the plot.
Yeah. So my Chinese is not that good, but I will say that, having an understanding of it and listening to it in the original Cantonese helped. But I will say, when you and I were watching this, and we watched this on Amazon, which doesn't give you the option of watching it in anything except the English dub, a lot of the story is explained or like a lot of the setup for everything that's happening is explained in this really terrible dub that's horrendously distracting. And people talk like this a lot. So when everyone speaks like that all the time, it's very hard to understand what people are saying.
It's that kind of dub where I think they're trying to match the lip movements. So you'll get very stuttered conversations because they're just trying to match the mouth.
Yeah, and it can be very hard to understand.
In contrast, though, when you have the original, right, it's actually so fast in how they speak that you're trying to catch up and understand what the actual plot is. And you kind of like, they're referencing so many people, so many characters, and you actually don't know who is who because they don't take the time to kind of like here's a picture, here's a scene with this person in it, and this is what they're doing. It's just like, here's 6 characters you don't know, but you may or may not know them by the end of the movie. Like, good luck.
Well, I think it's helpful that you guys, even if you didn't understand the language audibly, you could at least read it, and then you can kind of pick up on the story. So, okay, let me explain the story, since this is my third time watching
Yeah, I was
the
going to
movie.
say, I think I got the plot. I finally got the plot again watching it the second time around, but I was just so annoyed with it, and I fell asleep the first half. But I got it. I think I got it, but I want you to explain it well.
Okay, all right. So that's why you're feeling a little lethargic right now.
Yeah.
All right. So, Legendary Weapons of China. It has weapons at the end, but the movie's not really about the weapons. It's about Lao Galeng, Liu Xiaoliang. The reason why we didn't cover this movie earlier is because we had a little bit, kind of have enough of him, because we've been doing him a lot in many, many movies for obvious reasons, because he's quite a prolific guy. But the reason why we didn't cover it is because we just did him so much. But anyways, he is kind of like the star, I guess, or he is this. What's the word I'm looking for? Heretic? No. He escapes the military or whatever evil faction is whatever faction is trying
Sounds
to
like you're having
go
trouble
against.
describing the plot, Will.
Well, yeah, okay. Let me try a little harder then. Maybe I should start speaking Chinese.
Was it
Maybe
called the
that'll help.
boxing gang or something?
Let's not overcomplicate things. Let's just say that Liu Xiaoliang leaves the army of some sort. It's considered treason, but the reason why he chooses to do so is because everyone believes he knows the art of how to deflect bullets and how to teach that art to everyone else in the army. Unfortunately, he doesn't know how to do that. And he's just, we're missing all those scenes where he's explaining, guys, I don't know how to fucking do this. Can you please believe me?
That was one thing I was unclear of, whether he actually knew the technique or not.
You don't find out until the last half hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So because he leaves, it's considered treason, and the villain of the movie sends out a bunch of underlings to basically assassinate him. And by a couple, I mean everyone. We have Karawai. We have Karawai, obviously, from Lady is the Boss. We have Gordon Liu, who actually plays a villainous character, kind of.
Well, yeah, he's technically a bad guy in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have Ho Xiao, who is the other male lead. I don't know how to pronounce that guy's name. All I know is that he's the dude from Disciples of 36 Chambers, and he was so annoying in that movie. Yeah, and then we have this guy who plays his brother, Cha Yong Liu.
Did you mention
anyways,
Karawai?
so we have a bunch of people who we did mention
sorry.
Karawai. Yes, we did. Yeah, so that's the basic story, and it is stretched out to an hour and a half. I can, but I didn't explain it the most effective way. But when you really think about it, the story is actually very simple. It's basically let's kill the guy who has committed treason, and let's have a bunch of fights in the middle of it. The movie does not explain this very well.
There's actually a point in the movie where he starts explaining his reasons for not wanting to teach this move during a fight scene. It's one of those things where you get exposition while they're fighting, and that's something I always wanted. I want people to divulge information during a fight because I think that's so stupid. But they actually do it in this movie, and it is so stupid.
You expect them to gas out in the middle of it.
But actually slightly helpful because you don't know what's happening, so it becomes helpful when he actually explains it, as compared to other movies where it's the same shit that you already know.
And what's kind of annoying is, Lau Garlung's character, I feel like he doesn't really appear or is not really prominent until much later in the film. Mm-hmm. So you're spending a lot of time with Karawai and Ho Xiao. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And Karawai's fine, but I didn't realize she's supposed to be cross-dressing as a man. for most of the movie, I was just like, that's a very handsome man. Like, and then they kind of reveal at the end, like, oh, she's a woman, because one of the characters accidentally touches her breast.
That's right.
Yep.
If you got a cue, that's all that matters. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. Oh, yeah. I guess that kind of leads into the whole. Like you don't actually know who what eventually becomes revealed to be Lau Kao Leung, like his character. Like it's supposed to be set up as a whole mystery of who the martial arts trader is until like we get to like the 2/3 mark in the movie, or maybe like one halfway point in the movie. I don't know. I was like, well, it's Lau Kao Leung. Like, who else could it be?
That was kind of annoying
like,
because
he's in the movie.
Ho Xiao's character, everyone basically knows that Lau Kao Leung is the person they're looking for, and Ho Xiao's character is like, no, it's not him. He just looks like him. He knows martial arts because he needed to defend himself. And I'm like, you fucking moron. Of course it's him.
Well, you guys, I can understand why you'd be confused because there's another character who looks and dresses just like him.
And isn't that like really his brother in real life?
That's
and
his brother,
in the movie,
yeah.
I think that's supposed to be his brother as well.
Yes. Yep. I can see why you got confused because when we were watching this, like, wait, why is that guy killing people or like attacking people? I was like, no, that's not the same character. And I can Zero, you flipped out. You're like, what? Why? So yeah, we're doing a Shaw Brothers movie. It's very hard sometimes to cut it some slack, but we kind of have to, right? Because it's a. I mean, it is a later Shaw Brothers movie. It's the 82, so this is coming off of like 36 Chambers. This is post 36 Chambers, so I still have to be a little bit harsher on it because, like, you know, that movie already came out. So, like, I feel like every movie after that, like, no excuse.
Man, I feel bad for Gordon Liu. Like, what if he actually wanted to grow his hair out? I feel like having to work as a Shaw Brothers actor because of the success of 36 Chambers, he just always had to keep his head shaved. They probably always wanted him to have that look, you know?
Or it was the perfect excuse.
I mean,
for
even to
balding
this
head.
day. I mean, even to this day, he doesn't have hair. So, I mean, maybe he just acclimated to it. All right. So, that's the basic gist of it. We have some story beats in there that we can cover all, but let's talk about the action because there's really not much else to talk about this movie.
There's too much action.
Right,
in this
is there
movie.
anything?
There's too much freaking action.
Well, I mean, is that a problem?
For our format, I'll say it's kind of a problem because the last 40 minutes is just like not nonstop fight, but every scene has a fight, as I mentioned earlier. So we're gonna be dissecting a lot.
Yeah.
But
you don't have to cover every bit because I noticed there's a lot of exhibitions, right, in this movie. There's not a lot of. Sometimes it won't even be fighting. It'll just be like, oh, well, I'll just have a bunch of people doing flips, landing on their backs, or there's this whole sequence in the very middle of the movie. I can't believe. Well, I guess I'm jumping straight to it, where there's this con artist character played by Alexander Fu Sheng. We'll just call him Fu Sheng. That dude is playing this con artist, and he's not really fighting.
I forgot about
actually
that
don't wanna,
part. That's where I started to fall asleep.
I actually like this part a lot. I thought this was a great scene. I just like the corniness of it all, and then
well, I see that's a move that I like this scene too. But the reason why I don't want to talk about it in detail is because it's a one punchline. It's a joke scene with one punchline that goes on way too long.
That's true. But remember when I was saying like there's a subtle kind of undertone in this whole plot that I had to like read in between the lines, and maybe I'm just like jumping to.
Is it sexual?
No, not at all. You wish. But during that scene and once that ended, I felt like that whole scene was kind of a precursor to what the other scenes later kind of showed about like, no, I'm not bulletproof, you know? Basically, I felt like this was like dipping your toe into the pool of what the whole movie was about with just this con artist. And I felt like there was the subtext there with how Chinese martial arts are seen a lot as like amazingly and like invulnerable kinds of martial arts that and there's like a lot of mystery and mysticism shrouded in there. So this is kind of like literally it's kind of bullshit. Let's focus on the real fighting and the real like physical things that actually work, not the fireworks that you're hiding in your pockets.
Well, but Mark, they do fireworks in
a
pockets
lot.
They have daggers in their attached to their legs. So there's no subtext. It's literally like staring you in the face.
I mean, like on a grander, sociological kind of scale.
We're talking about legendary weapons of China. I wouldn't dig too deep into this.
So speaking of fireworks, one thing I wanted to point out is that this is the first Shaw Brothers film, or maybe one of the first Hong Kong films where I've seen pyrotechnics in the martial arts.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of the fights.
Alongside the fights. Like they're using what looks like firework propelled projectiles to shoot at each other at like certain points in the movie.
Oh my god.
And I thought that was fun. It was different. I could see how technology is getting better. Well, no, not technology.
In cinema, yeah.
Yeah, like they have to keep evolving. They can't just have weapons just constantly clashing at each other. They need to throw in some pyrotechnics to make it like more visually exciting. And I don't know if I can recall too many movies that use fireworks in there. Like I'm sure there are. Like there's gun pyrotechnics, but these are literal fireworks that they're using here. So
right.
I can't recall another movie that does it like this.
And it's not like explosions, because that's like a different pyrotechnic kind of
scenario. Exactly. They're literally shooting like fireworks at each other, or their weapons are propelled via fireworks.
Yeah, that was insane. I mean, they had literal knife rockets. Like
yeah, I was like, oh, that's neat.
What is the logic behind that? How
it
does that
was
work?
beautiful in that scene. I think it worked well.
Mm-hmm. So another thing I wanted to point out too is I kind of liked how the movie addresses the whole aspect that Chinese martial arts is invincible. They going along what you were saying, Mark, how you have this con man who is kind of amping up that whole notion, when in reality what's going on with the story is they want to get Lau Kar-leung's character because they think he's bulletproof against Western weapons. In reality, he's not. And that's I think that's kind of a notion that was going on maybe at the time, how they were, the Chinese people maybe were kind of afraid of, well, not maybe afraid. I think they were afraid of guns. And they were, using martial arts films to kind of, give, make the people feel strong in a sense against Westerners,
right?
Like our martial arts, can defend against guns.
Right. It makes me think of Boxer Rebellion, but that's like a whole historical different context. But yeah, like that literally, there's like that kind of did happen in real life. This is just a little more glorified, I guess, in a way. Or spectacle, I should say. See,
the most interesting things about this movie are the story.
That's true.
And somehow we are not. Some of you, both of you, didn't really enjoy the story all too well.
I didn't like how this story was presented, chronologically, and how the information unfolded to us. After watching it, I was like, oh, there are some things I kind of like about it, like I just mentioned. But while I was sitting through it, I hated how everything like unfolded. I was getting bored. Like I didn't understand. So
yeah, I completely get that. Like that part, it's completely understandable. So we can circle back around to this. Let's talk about the action, because I feel like we're just gonna go in circles in terms of like it can be boring at times, but at the same time, because there's a lot of action that is not technically a fight scene, it's just more like, again, exhibitions. Let's just kind of glance over some of this. I might jump all over the place because I totally forgot there's this earlier scene where they're in the attic of a house.
I like that.
And these are two assassins who come to try to kill the supposed treacherous martial artist. And they don't. Oh, I guess another detail you should know is that these assassins don't know each other's identities. So they're not even aware that they're on the same side technically. And Kara Y again is playing like this woman in drag, I guess.
Yeah,
Does
she's
that- I
got
don't
the
know if that makes
mustache,
any sense. Like
and
that.
it's very
Yeah,
distracting.
She's like
Very
she's
very
like a
convincing.
spy slash ninja in part of the movie.
Yeah. But yeah, so the setup is that they're trying to attack from the attic, right? They're using stealth methods, but then they obviously detect one another, and like in this weird maneuver, Ho Xiao takes out a like a bamboo straw out of his pocket, and there's like you can see like smoke coming out of it, right? And he puts it through the top of the ceiling, and he starts breathing out into it, almost like to breathe out like poison.
Yeah, I
into
thought
the room.
I thought maybe he was trying to poison her with gas.
Oh, I think no. I think he was trying to poison the person he thought was like in the bed.
Oh,
No,
is that what it was?
That's
Oh,
not how I
I
understood
think
it.
so.
Yeah, I thought he was trying to get her.
Mark, Zero. It doesn't matter because where was this smoke? How is this smoke just like staying inside this tube? Where's this poison coming from?
It's activated charcoal. Just leave it alone. That's fine.
This stomach
Well,
feels good.
the movie gets ridiculous when I guess the housekeeping comes and Gordon Liu comes. And it's so funny because you can clearly hear human bodies, struggling above them. And the housekeeper's like, oh, it must be a cat. And so Ho Xiao and Carol Y start making cat noises while they're fighting. So it's like cats don't weigh like a combined, a combination of like maybe like 220 pounds or something like that.
Oh my god.
Listen. Okay, like I know you don't know what the cats are like. Okay, but apparently, Ho Xiao actually did have a pocket cat, which he threw there at the very end. But I do like the choreography between the two of them. It's very creative. Definitely shows off a lot of their maneuverability, which I like. They move really quick, really fast.
I like when
Kara Y shows off. They both show off their flexibility. And like in these really awkward split stances that they keep doing.
I think it gets interesting for me when Gordon Liu is like, yeah, those aren't cats. And he starts stabbing at the ceiling with a spear. And then it becomes like, they're fighting each other, but then they're also dodging the spear stabs that are coming from the floor.
You forgot the one part where Gordon enters the room and just starts stabbing freaking sleeping bags and stuff for no reason, and then the housekeepers do nothing about it. They're like, "That's cool. It's not a problem."
Yeah, that's standard practice here. It's like, do you want to rent out the room? Well, let me just stab the person before we got the room. So like I do like the setup here. Although, I guess Kara Y's shtick or her fighting gimmick is that she fans out. That's the weirdest way to describe it.
A lot of characters have capes in this movie, and they use the capes as I don't know how you say it, like kind of like projectiles. Like they can make the capes kind of be these kind of distraction points so that their fighter is looking at it and they're really somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. It's like you see that in a lot of Batman comics, but whatever. I like the fight scene all in all. There's really nothing I want to call out in terms of like, oh, that move was cool. I think like the coolest parts in terms of, I can't believe I'm using the word cool. The most impressive parts of the fight choreography actually don't come from this. It comes from like the very beginning of the film when it's just started. I'm like literally jumping backwards in the movie right now where,
You
it's
mean
not
when
even
the guy rips his balls off?
Oh God. Yeah, maybe we should. I don't know if you want to touch on that, but apparently the members of this army or this clan have this weird unending devotion to it. So if the clan leader says so, you either poke out your own eyes or you rip off your own testicles. I guess they're implying that there is some sort of magic in this story because it seems like some people have this gaze that denotes mind control, right?
Right. Yeah. Well,
So it seemed like the higher ups had this power, and if you were under its control, you might end up ripping off your balls.
This movie doesn't shy away from the mysticism thing, what you mentioned before, Mark.
Yes.
There is a lot of magic that goes on in this movie, like folk magic, as they call it.
I think they call it also in this movie particularly, like the people as spiritual boxers, which is confusing because the martial arts is like Chinese boxing.
Well, you're talking about the Cantonese dub with the subtitles. Don't watch this on Amazon because they'll constantly refer to these fighters as pugilists.
Yeah, you had to explain that to me. I was like, what the fuck is a pugilist?
It's a fighter, but like you throw out that very archaic word out there, and it just throws everyone off. It's like, don't stop saying that.
Yeah.
Just say like, oh, his kung fu is really good. Just say that.
Well, they do say that.
No, they're just like, oh, his pugilism is amazing. It's like, what the fuck are you? What is that, a disease? Like,
when they were writing the English dub, they realized that they used pugilist too much, so they eventually just went, all right, we're just gonna say his kung fu is good. And that's what they keep on saying at the end of the movie.
Yeah, pugilism in this movie involves voodoo, which that's my awkward transition to the fight that happens after that con artist fight in the middle of the movie with Fu Shang. But this fight also happens to have Fu Shang, and he goes up against Ho Xiao, how you ever pronounce that, and it takes place over a toilet.
Oh God, this scene, Jesus Christ!
Best scene.
This is a fight scene. I mean, this is probably one of the more gimmicky fights. I mean, like, there's a lot of gimmicky fights.
There's like apparently this clan has voodoo dolls involved in there, and they have body control based off of these voodoo dolls. And it's weird. So one thing I wanted to mention is it seems like this movie. I don't know. Like I didn't think that. I thought they were trying to dispel the idea that there was mysticism in martial arts because Lau Garlong's character couldn't really deflect bullets. But then they threw in voodoo dolls. So I was like, all right, I don't know what they're trying to say here. Whatever. Like, if they can have voodoo dolls, then they can have a guy, deflect bullets. Come on.
Right.
You make a good point there.
That feels like a combination of just like traditional, like when they have, oh God, what did they call it? They have like the dim mak statues that show all the pressure points. They've just basically transferred that into a doll, and then he's puncturing all the points and moving everything to kind of move the body of the person he has possession over. Chinese spirit possession, if you will.
Well, I mean, I guess by the way that they're fighting, like, you would think that's how that works, but he literally can defy gravity. By holding the doll up and making him do a Spider-Man pose, and he's suspended above the shit water. Fu Sheng, I mean, it's like, it doesn't make any sense. He's not holding on to anything. It's like, wait, what? This is magic then? It's like, it's just pure magic. It would make more sense if he was holding on to something, but guess not.
So I was just gonna say, so for people who watch it on Amazon like I did, the annoying thing is in the English dub is they don't translate any of the Chinese characters. So I didn't understand that this was a bathroom. I just thought this was like a hut by the river. And it wasn't till the very end where some guy was like, "You got poo on you." And then you kind of filled in there like, "Oh yeah, that's the toilet." And I was like, "Oh, that's why they didn't want to go into the water." Like, that didn't make sense to me.
It takes away from the scenes for sure if you don't know that, because there's a sense of like peril that is constant when you're watching every scene.
Right. Yeah, I just thought it's a hut by the river. Like, oh, who cares that they're worried about going in the water.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Like, now I think about it. Like, so I watched it. I don't even know what version I watched it originally in, but it was definitely the Chinese dub. And then watching it with with you on Amazon, I was like, this movie doesn't make any sense. You're definitely robbed of something. So like the actual fight here is, again, gimmicky because Fu Sheng is fighting in a very wooden kind of fashion because he's being controlled. But also it kind of sets up for like hilarity because there's a bunch of dudes who wanted to steal the voodoo doll from the guy. I'm just gonna call him Guy. And yeah, the voodoo doll starts flailing around. So guess what? Fu Shang's flailing around. What hilarity! Such comedy coming from this. I say that with like a bit of sarcasm, but actually there is some pretty good physicality that comes from this, and it's not hilarious, like they intended to be, but I do like most of this actually, it seems like there's cute. A thought behind this.
Like when you reverse footage somebody falling into the water, I'm like, okay,
oh, yeah.
It doesn't work like that, but sure, I get it.
So just like that, like it just turns into the guy like literally holding the voodoo doll and like moving him around to fend him off, and then it ends with the hut being destroyed and everyone being casted into the water,
the poo and pee
into
water.
The shit water,
and they lose their money.
Yeah, and they immediately get syphilis. Everybody gets syphilis.
Is that so? Is that what they were implying later in the film, where Ho Xiao's character was sick, like because he fell into the shit water?
Been there, done that.
I would like to say so.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was the case, but I guess they never said it. They just said, you're deathly sick, and I was like, oh, why is he sick? What happened?
No, they definitely they were implying. Well, not even implying that. They literally just said, make it obvious. As soon as the scene is over, you see that he's just like coughing up. He's like, oh, and he's like pale as a ghost. So I don't know. Like a couple more scenes later, with poorly explained scenes later, we find ourselves. Now we actually have Lau Kar like back in the movie, and he's not back in the movie. He's finally in the movie, because up to this point he's barely in the film, and all of a sudden he's like the most pivotal character.
Yeah, this was kind of annoying that they kind of start to stick with him at this point. Like, I guess like Karawai finally goes to his, she goes to his hut, and I love that there are like, his weapons are wrapped in hay, but it looks like really poor Christmas wrapping. Like when it's like, oh, what is this? That can't be a tennis racket based off the shape.
But
like, he takes up like she takes like this long trident shaped hay thing. And she opens up as like, oh, it's a guitar. Of course.
A guitar.
Of course, that's what it is. So now it's revealed that he's the guy, and it's exactly like the lady is the boss. It's like you thought that or Scorpion, the Scorpion King, like basically every Lau Kar movie that we've ever covered. He just
takes
he
over
hijacks the movie.
Yeah, he hijacks. He's like, you know what? No, I'm the star now.
So then his brother comes into his brother goes to the hut where he lives, and Ho Xiao's also there trying to kill him because he thinks that he's his brother. God, that sounds really confusing the way that I just described it. Whatever. Yeah. It's a fight between Ho Xiao and this voodoo master again. Mm-hmm. And that's where we get those knife rockets that you mentioned.
Yeah, I like it. It's really short, but it's fun. Mm-hmm. It's very, very different. I can't recall seeing something like that before. And then again, we get the brother character using his cape as some sort of distraction. Yep. It's like, oh, look over here. No, I'm in the splits underneath the roof. Ha ha.
Yeah, I mean the fight doesn't really last very long, obviously, because the dude's very sick, so he can't really defend himself. And yeah, just like that, it's kind of just over. Yeah,
this was kind of disappointing because this is when we get first introduced to Hao Xiao's, I guess, leg swords. Like think of Assassin's Creed, how you have the knife, the wrist blade that's hidden. Yep. Inside the shirt wrist. Mm-hmm. Here he has knives hidden in the pants that come out. But every time they come out, the other fighter just kind of breaks them in half, which is really upsetting because that's such a cool visual. Yeah. That I was hoping that they would do something more with it.
Right. Well, they did. They really don't flesh it out too much. But yeah, what are you saying?
This is actually funny because you mentioned the breaking of like the blades. So they completely start to like disregard further into the movie like that the magic exists, nobody's bulletproof, but yet everybody can still break bare steel with their bodies and nobody gets cut. So they're not relinquishing the fact that like no, blades can't cut you like that, or that they can cut you. They're keeping that like. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. But bullets is a different story.
Right. Bullets. You can't defy bullets.
Physics, man.
There's a scene after this where the brother intercepts Lao Leong, and they have a little tiny scuffle. But it's revealed that they're brothers, and he says like, "Well, no, I'm not going to kill you right now. You're not in top shape. You should have a training montage." While I'm not here, and then we can be, we can have a final fight.
This is where the movie like kind of goes off the rails because I don't understand what his brother was. I don't understand how it really revolves around the plot.
Well, he's another assassin, obviously,
Was
right?
he? I didn't think he was
another
an assassin.
Mm-hmm.
God. Okay, that wasn't very clear to me. I just thought he was his brother, who's like, "Hey, I'm popping in. Dad's just wants to see how you're doing. I know you guys
don't forget the milk.
Yeah, I know you guys haven't talked in a while. Just trying to mend fences."
Yeah, he's like, Dad's been waiting for his cigarettes for 5 years. Where the fuck were you? All right, so there's like a non-training montage. It's kind of a training montage. It's like he's just showing off his weapon skills. Just to set up, he's trying to get better at it again because he's obviously rusty. And then Gordon Liu shows up, and then we have a fight with Gordon Liu.
One thing I just want to mention real quick: it's really upsetting that Carol Y gets sidelined this whole movie. In terms of fights, like there's a few moments where she steps in and Lao Long literally is like, no, get out of the way.
Just and like Lady is the Boss.
Yeah, she just turns into this cheerleader. She's just like, you could do it, Uncle. Come on, Uncle. And it's funny, her advice is so stupid. All she keeps saying, at least in the English dub, she just keeps saying like, be stronger, do it stronger. And I'm like, no.
Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, like it's funny because there's a moment later on where he has expelled a lot of energy and he's tired, and she's like, be stronger, and he's like, dude, he's tired. That's not that's not how strategy works at this point.
But that's actually when she's wearing feminine clothes, and then every time when she actually wears men's clothes, she is like carries her own and is pretty much invulnerable, and she's a badass throughout the whole movie. So it's kind of annoying, like you were saying, for sure.
Yeah, that is weird how like it's funny in the English dub, you can hear the female voice actress trying to make her voice deep when she's, quote unquote pretending to be a man. But once she's found out, it's just the voice actress just being very feminine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she does get her fair share of fighting once Gordon Liu infiltrates the house, and like basically everyone takes turns fighting him. Right? He's clearly the better fighter amongst the two of them. So he takes on Kara Y. It's I feel like we've talked about this a lot in like more modern martial arts movies, where it's like there's always feels like there should be an escalation of like intensity, right? And here it's more like it's a dance, but it's a good dance. It's definitely a good dance because I'm like, wow, this choreography is pretty good. Yeah. It just feels like there's no I feel like there's no direness to this. It feels like there's like it's not like he's about to swipe her face, and then she just got out of there in the nick of time.
It's move counter move constantly all throughout.
Yeah, very typical of the Shaw Brothers choreography. So I'm not trying to be so harsh on it. Not what I like, but yeah, the choreography is good. It's still in that metronome kind of style where you can see there is that brief moment of pause between some moves where it makes it look like an opera kind of dance.
Yeah. Can we talk about that shoulder blade move though?
Which one?
That comes a lot late. That comes a lot later in the fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically it's like Ho Xiao and Kara Y fighting Gordon Liu because I guess Lao Garlung is not, he hasn't powered up yet. He hasn't, he hasn't built his spirit bomb yet and absorbed all his energy. But it's you can definitely see when Kara Y fights Gordon Liu, like there is there's a certain pace that they're setting. But once Hao Xiao gets in there, you can see he's definitely the better fighter because he gets the choreography gets much faster after that.
Yep. Yeah, and it also gets a little bit more chaotic, right? I feel like there's a little because like when it's between her and Gordon Liu, it feels like okay, we have these much longer wides that really show off her like flexibility, her mobility. But like when he gets involved, it's like well now we're using weapons. Now we're using he gets head-butted into the ceiling, and he comes crashing down, and he opens up with all these bladed stars, and like there's a lot more movement and a lot more involvement when he gets like he's actually fighting.
Yeah, that was that. I like what he did there, but that was lost on me because what happens is he comes down from the ceiling, opening up. I guess
and he turns into a Confederate flag.
Yeah, he opens up his pants. Or something, and it's filled with these ninja stars, or just these bladed stars. I didn't understand that he clamped his body down onto Gordon Liu and then stuck all the stars in his back. So I got confused when you see Gordon Liu's back and you see all the stars on there. I was like, what? What happened?
Right.
And then he pops them out a fucking I don't know, like fireworks again.
Like, yeah. So it gets obviously a little bit more complicated because Hou Xiao is being convinced. I guess he was brainwashed, obviously, by the evil cult. So I don't even know if they're evil cult or whatever. But so like basically Gordon Liu just has to say a certain trigger word, and you just see he's like he basically just switches sides like immediately, right? But also I guess the way that. This made me laugh the first time I watched it was the shoulder blade method.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I liked about this fight is Gordon Liu. He had a very, very distinct style. I like how he's doing a lot of headbutts at first, and he's using his back a lot. And what ends up happening is they end up ripping off his shirt, and then he strictly fights with his back to Lao Gaolong, and he's using his shoulder blades to kind of
he catches like a stab.
Yeah, he catches his fists between his shoulder blades, and it's so impractical. But visually, I'm just thinking, okay, well, I've definitely never seen that before.
Right.
Yeah, it's don't ever turn your back against someone unless you're Gordon Liu. If you're Gordon Liu, then you have the advantage.
Yep.
What I almost thought they were gonna do is they were going to take shoulder blades literally, and he was gonna swipe. His back at Lao Gaolong, and he was going to get cut with it, and he would be like, oh, this is my shoulder blade technique, eh?
Oh, my God. The forbidden art.
Yeah.
Well, Gordon Liu gets... his
ass handed to him?
Well, yeah, of course, but he gets not blinded, but he gets
he gets
strikes in both ears.
Yeah, not blinded. He gets deafened.
Tinnitus.
Yeah, deafened. Yeah, he got the tinnitus. Yeah. And he's basically tries to commit suicide.
Very, very poor taste in imagery too.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, but they literally just go up to him and just pick him up.
that was funny. He's like, all right, I lost. Time to set myself on fire. And so they just go and pick him up. And
they're like, no, you're not allowed.
And he's
die.
all butthurt.
Oh, okay. I love how they're like, oh. We're not gonna let you die. It's like, why didn't you let me? His immediate response should be like, what? Can't what? What are you saying? What?
Oh, in the English dub, they're talking to him, and they say, oh, he can't understand us, and so he replies, I get the gist of it, something along those lines. I was like, no, you don't. And he's talking to them with his back to them, so he has no idea that they're even talking.
He just feels the spit on their face. All right. So yeah, you are right. We are completely backloaded with fights. We have the evil cult leader who shows up now, and they have a relatively short fight with a lot of spectacle, a lot of practical effects. I guess but that's the best way to describe it. A lot of practical effects. There's like I said before, like Hou Xiao keeps on flipping back and forth in terms of the his alliances. I guess, and we have that. What
I was gonna say, they're trying to do something with his character. Like he's the naive, the naive young soldier who's told to follow this mission, and he's not sure who to believe because Lau Kar-Long cured him from dysentery, technically. So he's kind of, he's grateful for that. But then he realized, his master is like, well, you got to do the mission. Plus, I control, mind control with my eyes. Ooh.
Right.
So he's kind of distraught. You can see him constantly flip-flopping in terms of who he should be fighting.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, this is where it starts getting to a point where the fights are getting a little bit too long, to the point where I can't really hone in on anything spectacular. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
there are no standouts now. It just feels like the choreography is getting a little too long for my taste.
Right. Well, that's kind of indicative of the Shaw Brothers choreography at the time, where it's the end of the movie. Now we got to give the audience what they've been waiting for. Too much action. And you get these just long takes of choreography. All very impressive, but at the same time, you're kind of just thinking, okay, well, maybe this should end already. Give it, let us feel the build up, and then what's going to happen from that. But it's weird because I thought Gordon Liu was going to be the mini boss, and now I thought the guy he's fighting now, which is like that clan leader, I thought he was the final bad guy. Right. So this fight ends so anticlimactically that I thought, like, oh, is that the end of the movie?
Right.
And then the movie keeps going, and I was like, that's why I was getting like so frustrated with this film.
Well, I can see why you say that, because the resolution for this is exactly the same way that Gordon Liu's fight ended, which is he tries to kill himself by gouging his own eyes out, but they wouldn't let him. So that's really all it is. It's like, well, technically we could have had one or the other. We didn't really need both, but it's fine. I like the choreography. So it's unfortunately just it feels like, again, there's no escalation or tension. It just feels like, oh, there's these two dancers are dancing really well on screen. And then that explains like why this character is not in the movie anymore, because they just let him go.
One of the reasons, though, that they actually, I think, did the scenes is because they kind of split up the 18 weapons in these two fights. They didn't want to like super pack all the weapons into one.
Well,
which is what they kind of do at the end.
Yeah. Anyway,
imagine if the last fight was all 18 weapons. Holy Jesus,
dude!
Yeah.
It's still a lot of weapons, guys. Like,
yeah. They should have really broken up all these weapon fights throughout the movie. Like, I wish, like the echoing what I've been saying this whole time. Like, the choreography is great. It's really impressive. It's just like at this point we're kind of fatigued with the story, so I was kind of checking out by this point.
It's not until they actually get to the last 17 minutes of the movie, and I kind of counted, where they actually start using like the weapons, where they start naming them, so you know that the movie is still about the weapons, even though the first hour and a half. You
watched this on Netflix, so you had the luxury of being able to read it.
Yeah, when we watched this on Amazon, we were like, "What did those Chinese characters say?"
Right. Yeah. Even if you could tell what those Chinese characters say, because I can't fucking read. Like, I can barely read in English. But I'll tell you right now, this is a 10-minute fight sequence between two guys, and they keep switching up weapons.
We're talking. Are we?
We're on the final fight. We
now?
are on the final fight.
Okay,
We brought it up before. We're finally here. I think this is the worst fight in the movie.
Really?
Yeah. I don't like this fight at all.
I think I have to agree with that.
I like the preview. I actually even like the gimmicky fights over this. I like the Fu Shang fight with the con man. Both fights that he was in. I like I prefer every fight more than this one. This final fight is so long and exhausting.
I think I didn't mind the final fight because I fell asleep during the first half of the movie. So I was like, oh, hey, like, just straightforward choreography. I was like, okay, I can get into this.
All right. There's never a moment where, okay, let's just say that you don't have a time code on screen. You can't see how long this fight sequence is going to be. You will never know when this fight's going to end.
That is true. It is hard to tell where you are in the fight in terms of like, okay, are we getting to the end? Are we still in the middle? Like, what's going on?
Are there health bars halfway through? is like one in the red, one is still in the green? You just you have no idea.
Like sometimes it's fine not knowing if the fight's gonna end, because that can be surprising. You take twists and turns. They try to change it up by introducing the mind control again, but it's more played for laughs at this point.
Right.
But yes, this fight is very, very long. I think why I like this fight though, for me, is I completely removed this fight from the plot at this point. Like, I didn't care about the story at all. So I was just watching it more from like a technical aspect. And what I didn't really pick up on is that anytime a new fighter gets a weapon, the opposing fighter will get a different weapon that is essentially the one that will beat that weapon.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
I get that. It just feels like they're constantly playing rock paper scissors with weapons, and I'm like, okay, but when
yeah, I mean that would be like the easiest way for me to
to
describe
actually
it.
win.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I choose scissors. Well, I choose papers. Well, I choose rock. Well, guess what? It's like, okay, when is it gonna fucking end?
Yeah, they're just constantly. Yeah, they're just. The whole thing is just rock paper scissors with weapons. Like, okay, now I have this weapon, and this is the weapon that defeats.
See, this is why I can't really call out any like spectacular moments where I'm like, wow, that was so amazing. We need to talk about that, like, because it just goes on and on and on. But you're all right. Like, in terms of physicality, I like what they're doing, especially since Lau Kar Leung is in his mid 40s by the time he was doing this movie. So it's like, oh wow, he's very like with everything he's ever been in, even when he was later in life before he passed away. Like, I'm like, this guy is so fast, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, so for me, the best part of this is when he gets the metal chain and the other guy has the dual daggers with the green like feathered ends. Like, I love, like, this is my favorite part because this is no longer like Shaw Brothers metronome fighting. Like, this is fast. There's a lot of it's just like a normal fight at this point. And I'm just always impressed by his speed. So that's why I really, really like this, even though, it's just thrown in the middle of other fights. Like, if you watch it though, like this, for me, this is like where all the fast choreography comes in.
Well, I don't know. Mark, you're the tiebreaker here. What do you think? What do you think?
I mean, honestly, I'll have to go with. I think.
We're not even there yet, but we're talking like not recommendations yet. I'm talking about like this final fight.
No. I know. No. I enjoyed. I'm saying I enjoyed the movie more in the beginning, fight scene wise, compared to everything else. So. Like you were saying with the con artist, with the toilet scenes, all of that stuff compared to this scene, I think all of that is much better than this. I did like the weapons that they finally showed up, but it also felt very forced. And it was just like, okay, I guess I have some fulfillment now since there's literally like what I expected there to be.
Well, let's all rewind for a second. What is the setup for this fight? Like, it's like, oh, he needs to go up against his brother because this was like their fated rematch between them. But honestly, do they need the fight?
Yeah, that's why I was kind of annoyed, because he defeats the clan leader. And that should have been it. They were out to get him, and trying to kill him. They sent assassins. I didn't realize that the brother was also an assassin. This whole thing could have just been lobbed off, and they could have ended with the clan leader losing. Yeah. And it's funny, when he loses, he's like, "Your kung fu's good," and he literally bounces. He like walks off screen.
I mean, the way that this ends is like, they spare him. They spare the dude. He falls to his knees and he cries about living a dishonorable life now. And then the movie's over.
Yeah, your typical freeze frame. Oh my god, that's so horrendous though.
And it sucks because when they do the freeze frames, whenever they do them in the Shaw Brothers movies, they're so much blurrier than the actual just letting it play out.
That required them to keep filming. They were like, no, we can't use any more film, man.
Yeah, it's just so annoying. It's just like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's a limitation of the time. But
unfortunately.
Well, that was the legendary weapons of China.
There were knives and stuff.
There were some knives. There were a lot of weapons. Too many. Actually, too many. When I was thinking legendary weapons, I was like, oh, there must be like 4 of them. No, it's way too many.
Isn't there like 18?
Like, why are there 18? This fight's going on way too much. And yes, like all the fights are backloaded, so you don't see those 18 weapons until the end of the fucking movie.
And there's not even like a uniform consensus on what the 18 are. It's just like Shaw Brothers chose the 18 they felt were appropriate, but there's actually no consensus. So it's a little bit weird. There's actually technically more than 18.
Let's not count them all, please.
Gotta catch them all.
Legendary Weapons of China. Let's all. Who should go first? Mark, what are your thoughts on the movie?
As in typical Mark fashion, I think I'm gonna have to say I like the plot, but it should have been spread out in maybe 3 movies instead
no!
of just one.
3 movies.
We're making a franchise of this?
Yes. No, I'm serious, because you could have easily taken this film, filmed, hashed out and detailed more of the plot, made it flow better, and you could have probably made it into a trilogy if they really wanted to. 2 would probably suffice for the time. And they could have actually used the characters better, because it just felt like a jumbled mess. I would say directing, there was problems, just formulating the whole screenplay and making sure it played out the way they wanted to, and that's where I had the most problems. But plot I was kind of pleased with, choreography very pleased with, and in just Shaw Brothers fashion, I mean, overall I think just a really decent overall Shaw Brothers movie. I didn't have any complaints, and I like the fact that they're doing weapons. It's based on weapons, even though it only showed up for like the last 20 minutes.
That is true. We don't really cover a lot of.
I do a recommend though.
We don't cover a lot of martial arts movies where it's like strictly weapons fights. It's mostly like a lot of our movies we covered in the past has like been hand-to-hand combat, which is great. But yeah, you are right.
And there's training montages with weapons, but there's sometimes or like using everyday objects to train, but never actual lengthy weapon on weapon fighting combat.
Right. Yeah. So okay. So we usually do our. Do you recommend the movie? Do you recommend the fights only, or you recommend the movie as a whole? And
I recommend the movie. I recommend the movie to a more plot-driven viewer.
Okay.
And I would recommend the fight.
Would you watch the fights without the context?
Yes.
I mean, like, is it necessary to watch?
He said yes.
All right.
No, it is not necessary.
No, I just want to make sure. Okay, I understand that. And so the last question. All right, so I don't lose track of it. Is does this movie hold up? Whenever we talk about Shaw Brothers movies, and with the context of being a modern martial arts fan, does an older movie like this hold up? At least in your opinion.
That is a tough question. There's a lot of things that put me off about it, but I think it just holds up.
Just barely.
I think it just holds up.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Zero, what are your thoughts? We can do a shit sandwich thing. I'm pretty sure you're gonna be the most not so positive of this film.
Right. Well, I mean, I could always spin anything positively, but unfortunately, I did not dig this movie at all. The first time we watched it, of course, I was entertained because you and I were watching it together, drinking and joking and generally being confused. So that's always kind of fun.
You were to this movie like I was to Yakuza Apocalypse. I was like, what the hell is happening?
Oh man. The whole time I felt like I might have been annoying you because I just kept on saying like I don't understand what is going on.
But you had to blame Amazon for that. I think that's partly responsible for that. But
I think the lack of translation of Chinese characters wasn't helping. The English dub definitely wasn't helping. I wish I could have watched the original audio on this, or at least the Mandarin on it. But yeah, it wasn't crazy about this plot and how it all came together. I liked aspects of it, as I've mentioned previously, but for me, I would say you could just watch the fights, and I like the fights. Mark, you mentioned this. Like I don't really recall too many martial arts movies that are really strictly based on weapons. And now that I think about it, this is like one of the biggest ones I've seen that is just mainly weapons. So I really, really like that. I know you guys didn't like the last fight. I liked it strictly because from a technical aspect. Like I just love the weapons on weapons fighting. Mm-hmm. You could easily look that up on YouTube in terms of like, oh, let's see people fight with weapons, and it doesn't matter because I feel like this last fight doesn't matter in terms of the plot. I don't care about any of these characters at this point.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
I think Lao Garlung is an impressive fighter, even at his age. It's so crazy how fast he is. So I definitely recommend the fight to the movie.
Okay. And does it hold up?
Well, because I don't recommend the movie, I would say it doesn't hold up.
Okay.
But I would say from like a modern martial arts movie enthusiast perspective, I think the last fight is pretty decent if you're into weapon stuff.
Right.
Maybe sometimes it gets metronome, but other times it looks very, very fast. Like I mentioned, the double swords and the chain whip fight specifically. I thought that was really great.
Yeah. Even if it filmed at 22 and then sped it up, I mean, like it's you can tell like they're still really fast, as a whole.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing I wanted to mention too. I don't think I've seen sword and shield martial arts tactics in a Chinese film before. That was new. That feels very European. So it was kind of neat to see them use a shield as a weapon and also as like a literal shield. So I was like, okay, they're doing something. They're doing something.
That usually
different
feels like reserved for the battlefield, like war games, actual war games, as opposed to like
One-on-one.
masters fighting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciated that. So
Right.
yeah, there you go.
Well,
The movie doesn't hold up, but I think the last fight has some good choreography.
yeah, it's unfortunate that you and I don't agree on that the last fight specifically, because like I'm sure if I loved it or we had a consensus on it, we would dissect it. I think has the opposite effect on me, where the last fight has so little intensity to it that I just check out. This is where I actually find the movie boring. So the movie itself, the plot's a mess. The way they explain the story is a mess. But once you actually understand it, you're like, oh, I see where they're going. This is not how you tell a story. But I understand it now. And because I like the story, but not the way they explained it, I give it a lot of slack. So I'm a lot more forgiving in that sense. Watching it again, I'm like, oh, again, they don't do this well, but whatever. So I think one thing I should probably bring up is that I think now I've recognized the pattern when it comes to how I like to analyze a Shaw Brothers era movie, which is I know for a fact that the fights are going to be a little bit more metronome, like the intensity is going to be dialed down a little bit because it's like their techniques haven't been refined like they currently are for modern films, right? So like, yes, fights like the last one would be like, okay, this is going on too long. How can I be more forgiving? Well, the story better be interesting. Hey, Mark, that's your favorite thing, the plot.
Love stuff.
So I do like the story.
That's a first.
Like from a helicopter view. I'm like, I like the story. I think that the fights at times can be a little slow. I do appreciate them for sure. So I guess like I will say that every fight throughout the film like has something to appreciate. I think you could watch the fight scenes without the story, but I actually do recommend just sitting through the whole movie because I think that the story is more interesting itself than the actual fights, even though they don't tell the story well.
Well, that's how I feel. Like I kind of liked the story once I understood it, but I hated how it was doled out to us.
Yeah.
Because I fell asleep. I was bored.
I start falling asleep at the last 10 minutes because that fight goes on way too long. Although again, it's impressive, but still. Does it hold up? I think this is overrated in terms of like the other legendary Shaw Brothers movies, like I might have seen in the past. I like Crippled Avengers more than this. I think that was more.
As a whole, I agree. I enjoyed Crippled Avengers a lot more than this.
Yeah, I like most of the Venom movies more than this movie, but I don't think this movie's bad. I just think it's just a mess, and has problems with it. I don't think it's as legendary.
Oh my god!
As everyone says it is.